Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Undone Vintage Salmon. This watch is available from undone.com for €339. Undone also offer a custom dial printing service. If you look at the dial, you can see the Undone brand logo is at 6 and there is a space on the dial at 12, and that is for if you want the dial custom printed. You can have up to 8 characters printed on the dial. The price of the custom printed dial version is €358 respectively. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in this fabric coated watch box, as you can see, very aesthetically pleasing. One removes the popper strap, and there's a tray which one withdraws. So as you can see, in the base of the tray we have a foam cutout panel for the watch, so it does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping. Nice presentation, and the tray inside the sleeve makes a refreshing change from the usual plastic or cardboard watch boxes that one would expect at this price point. With regards to the other items, this is the guarantee card, and I'm pleased to report that the Undone Vintage Salmon is covered by a 12-month international guarantee. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a 47.6mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 13mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The genuine leather strap tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang, and as you can see, the stainless steel buckle and tang is signed to high standard with the Undone brand logo engraved. Good heavy gauge of metal to the 316L grade stainless steel buckle, brushed satin finish throughout, no sharp edges to it, very well executed. I like the contrasting cream stitching on the leather strap, and it's got a nice tan coloured tone to it, and it's very good quality. The strap is thick, but I'm confident that with daily wear it's going to break in and become very soft and supple. So I'll show you the underside to the leather strap. Plenty of holes to allow for fine tuning the length. The stitching is flawless on the top side and underside, and as you can see, the underside has genuine leather embossed. I like the attention to detail because we've got stainless steel quick release spring bars, so one doesn't need a spring bar tool to remove the strap if you want to change it, and there's plenty of length on the strap. The contrasting stitching is very aesthetically pleasing. On the buckle and tang side we have 2 keepers, one's fixed and one slides as one would expect, and again we have flawless stitching on the top side and the underside. And on the buckle and tang side, the strap is embossed with the Undone brand logo, so nice attention to detail, and I like the use of quick release spring bars. With regards to the rest of the specification, the crystal isn't sapphire as you might expect, it's actually made from K1 hardened glass. So K1 hardened glass is similar to Seiko Hardlex, which you'll be familiar with, and I'll explain what the difference between K1 and standard mineral crystal is. K1 is heat treated to make it harder and more scratch resistant than standard mineral glass. Now the benefit of using K1 rather than sapphire crystal is K1 hardened glass is more shatter resistant than sapphire, and it's also more scratch resistant than standard mineral glass. Now the other advantage of using K1 hardened glass is it is more transparent than acrylic, and of course more scratch resistant. So it's more plastic than sapphire crystal, and I really like the choice of it. It makes a refreshing change from using acrylic or alternatively sapphire crystal for the double dome sapphire crystal, as you can see. Beautiful distortion on the edge of the crystal when one tilts it at an oblique angle. Now the negative is there is no AR coating on the underside, and this is something I would like to see because as you can see there is a lot of glare and highly reflective nature to the K1 mineral glass, although it does give the piece a vintage aesthetic like an acrylic crystal. With regards to the dial, it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. The dial has a beautiful salmon tone to it, it looks like it's metallic copper, and I really like the vertical brushed satin finishing to it because it catches the light when one tilts it at an angle. The subdials are recessed into the dial and they have concentric circles, and again they catch the light beautifully, as you can see. It's just lovely the way the concentric circles in the subdials refract the light and catch it. The leaf hands are black and they contrast very well with the salmon dial, and also one of my favourite aspects is the use of Breguet numerals. The Breguet font is classic and it really does finish the dial to perfection. Quality of the printing is outstanding, and the quality of the tachymeter scale which is printed around the circumference of the dial, is done to a very high standard. Nice crisp printing. And I really like the black Breguet numerals. They contrast very well with the dial, but they complement the black leaf hands. Legibility is outstanding. With regards to the crown, it's a solid stainless steel crown, which is push-pull, provides 30 metres of water resistance, which is perfectly acceptable for a chronograph. Signed to a high standard on the cap with the Undone brand emblem. Mirror polished is very good, and we've got coin edge finishing to it. So let's test the push-pull crown execution. Now, this uses the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz, which is a date complication Mecha Quartz movement. Pulling it out to the first click position is a phantom date setting position, so one can feel the date complication clicking over because the date wheel is present underneath the dial. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position. Absolutely silky smooth, very light resistance to it, no back play clockwise or anti-clockwise. Absolute pleasure to set the VK64 Mecha Quartz. So pushing it back in restarts the movement. So the VK64 hacks. One can hack the second hand dead to set the time precisely to the second. So silky smooth, I really like it. It's a very good quality push-pull crown, and 30 metres is perfectly acceptable. With regards to the pushers, they're mirror polished to a high standard, very aesthetically pleasing. So let's test the chronograph complication. Pushing the top pusher activates the chronograph complication, and as you can see, the black chronograph hand will begin to tick around the dial. Nice firm resistance to the pusher. I like the firm spring-loaded action, which is a characteristic of the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz. Pushing the top pusher again stops the chronograph complication, and pushing the lower pusher will activate the flyback and make the chronograph hand fly back to the 12 o'clock index on the dial. We have the 12 o'clock Breguet numerals, of course. So pressing the lower pusher causes it to fly back. So it resets perfectly bang on 12 o'clock. So I really like that aspect of the VK64. It's a very accurate movement, and it's just very aesthetically pleasing looking at the salmon dial through the domed K1 mineral crystal. Right, so I'll show you the Caseback, which is another feature I really like. Stainless steel exhibition Caseback, glazed with mineral crystal. The mirror polishing is done to a very high standard, and the circumference is engraved with the specification of the piece, also to a high standard. Very low profile and flat, as you can see, and it means it's very flat and comfortable to wear against the wrist, and it makes the case very low profile. This is only 13mm thick, including the domed K1 hardened crystal. So it does a good job of displaying the VK64 Mecha Quartz. Now, this is the first time I've seen an exhibition Caseback used on a piece which is powered by the VK64. And it makes a refreshing change, because Undone could have used the cost-cutting measure of using a solid stainless steel Caseback, but I actually like the use of the exhibition Caseback to see the VK64, because it is interesting to see what one looks like if you're not familiar with it. And this is a genuine Seiko VK64 made in Japan, and it's finished to a very good standard. So very aesthetically pleasing to look at the exhibition Caseback, and it's very low profile, as I've discussed. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, the strap is just a fraction too short to engage the end of the strap in both of the keepers for my 8-inch wrist, but however, for the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7-inch wrist, this strap will suffice. It's perfectly long enough. It will actually fit up to a 7.5-inch wrist, but if it was just half an inch longer, it would fit up to my 8-inch wrist, but however, it is satisfactory. Now, with regards to the fit and the comfort level, this is an incredibly comfortable piece because it only weighs 58 grams on the leather strap. It feels weightless, incredibly well balanced, and also well proportioned. The angular lugs point down to the wrist, so it gives a nice snug fit. It doesn't have a large gap underneath the angled lugs. And the lugs are finished to a very high standard. The mirror polishing and the chamfers, the bevels to the edges of the lugs, are absolutely gorgeous the way they catch the light. One aspect I really like about the case is the stepped bezel, and that's something one rarely sees. It gives the watch a real Art Deco aesthetic, and the double domed crystal is absolutely beautiful the way it catches the light, and I really like it. The clarity of the K1 hardened glass is definitely superior to acrylic, and of course harder and more scratch resistant. So it's absolutely beautiful, the metallic copper tone to the dial, the way it catches the light, and also the way the subdials catch the light. It's just a very aesthetically pleasing piece. The vertical brushed satin finishing to the flanks is also very aesthetically pleasing, so it's a good looking piece, comfortable to wear, and it's very noticeable. The 58 grams, it really does lack heft, bearing in mind it's a 40mm head of the piece. 47.6 lug to lug is very close to perfection. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I consider 48mm to be the sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. At 47.6 it is very close to that 48mm sweet spot, so the proportions of it are very good. 20mm lug width is the correct choice for a 40mm head of the piece, and there's a nice taper from 20mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang, so the taper on the leather strap is also very good. So proportions good, feel good factor good, and it's just a very good looking piece. Right, so let's discuss the movement used, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse Mecha Quartz movement made in Japan. It has a stated battery life of 2 years, and that's based upon you using the chronograph complication for 60 minutes per day, but however in reality you're not going to be using the chronograph complication for anything like 60 minutes per day. Therefore it's nothing unusual for a VK64 battery to last for 3 to 4 years. So potentially you could buy this piece and wear it daily for 3 to 4 years before needing to change the battery, so that's very good. One aspect I really like about the VK64 in particular is the incredible accuracy. The stated accuracy of the VK64 is plus or minus 20 seconds per month. I want you to consider that for a second. That isn't plus or minus 20 seconds per day or per week, that is per month. Better than plus or minus 1 second per day. So it actually exceeds chronometer limits. To get plus or minus 20 seconds per day is incredible accuracy with a 4-year battery life. And really there are no negatives to the VK64 whatsoever. The movement hacks. It has a quick set complication for the dates, but of course in this instance we don't have a date window, a date complication, so one doesn't benefit from that. But the reliability and the accuracy are the two strong points of it. It really doesn't have any negatives, and it's one of the most reliable Mecha Quartz movements. I really like the VK64. So the correct choice for this piece. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So €339 is the price point of this Undone Vintage Salmon. Really, to evaluate the quality and the value of the piece, one has to study the finishing of the watch throughout. The quality of the mirror polishing to the head of the piece is some of the best I've seen. The stepped bezel has flawless mirror polishing, and one detail I really like is the vertical brushed satin finishing to the flanks. It makes a refreshing change from mirror polished flanks, or alternatively longitudinal brushed satin finishing. The vertical brushing is done to a very high standard, and I love the way it catches the light. It's very aesthetically pleasing. There's also a nice undercut to the head of the piece, and the mirror polishing to the exhibition caseback is done to a flawless standard. So the quality of the finishing on this piece is the kind of finishing one would expect to see on a mid-tier piece costing in excess of €3,000. So to get this at only €339 is a credit to Undone. Now, value is the weak point. €339 is expensive for a VK64. I think that to make this more competitive within the mid-tier, I think that Undone need to lower the price down to circa €200 with the VK64 to make it more competitive and more palatable to collectors, because really $339 is pushing it for a VK64. If this had a Seagull caliber ST1901, and then yes, I would say the price would be justified, but of course the negative of using the caliber ST1901 is it would make the watch significantly thicker, because the ST1901 is thicker than the VK64, which is a Mecha Quartz. So I can understand their choice of using the Mecha Quartz, the VK64, versus, say, the ST1901, because it means that one can get the thickness of the piece down to a low profile 13mm and still include a double domed K1 hardened glass crystal. So interesting choice, but I think the price needs lowering. Quality is excellent. I would say the value is okay. Now really this appeals to you if you want a custom printed dial watch, because for €358 there is a space on the dial at 12. As I've discussed, you can have up to 8 characters printed on the dial, your initials, your name for example. So from the perspective of this being a gift, I think that this is good, because at $358 you get a custom printed dial, and the dial is absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, the salmon tone of it is just beautiful. It's got a nice metallic copper tone, and the black Breguet numerals really complement it. So I'm going to recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Undone Vintage Salmon. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.